Well, hello and welcome to this week's episode of the Phlightless Phoenix Podcast. Oh, I completely forgot to work on last week's episode over the weekend, which it doesn't take much, so I can do it tonight if I remember, but I do have to remember to render it so that I can upload it. But I think that that'll be a little easier to do. Uh, kind of going forward. With the new office we moved to, I have a little bit of a longer commute. The problem is it's not actually longer in like driving distance. It's almost exactly the same, maybe a tiny bit longer by like maybe a couple dozen feet. So that's like maybe 30 seconds in a park because it's a bigger parking lot than the other place. But they're like across the street from each other, so pretty much no difference in actual commute time, except for the fact that it's on the second floor and it's a longer drive, or not long drive, longer walk to the door. So it's a longer walk to the door, a longer walk to, and then a longer walk to the actual clock-in point. So, like, when I'm clocking in and out, my commute is now 15 minutes as opposed to the 12 to 13 it was before most of the time. So, it's a solid 15 minutes. And I just like that ever so slight change is making me run late. Not much late, like a minute late, but I'm just consistently being like a minute slower than I think I am. So it's kind of weird how those tiny, tiny changes in your daily routine can make an impact you didn't really realize. Because I didn't even realize I was counting on the time so consistently. I kind of thought I was just approximating it, but no, apparently my brain was better at telling time than I thought. Anyways, earlier today I was listening to a video by this guy who does a bunch of like conspiracy theory debunking videos, essentially. And I was listening to one of his videos while I was working, and is just like he does a good job of kind of debunking the very blatantly obvious, in most cases, fake science that a bunch of like conspiracy theory accounts are doing, and does a pretty good job of like calling them out on all their stuff. But he was doing a whole thing on kind of like young Earth creationism, which I've talked about on this podcast before. Which young Earth creationism is saying that the Earth was created by God like 6,000-ish years ago, and that but the young Earth part of it is saying that that is the oldest that the Earth gets ever. And that is the part I have a problem with, because I've talked before about how I do believe that God created the earth in 6 days and created the whole universe in 6 days, really. But I also still believe that he made it billions of years old and deliberately created evolution as a way for life to continue to change on the planet. Because a ball of rocks that's only 6,000 years old in floating in space with no history to it is not a good place for humans to live. And so God created an old earth, which the people that he was specifically having a problem with are young earth creationists. And I guess that would make me an old earth creationist, which is kind of a weird term in a way, but he was just kind of being a little too generic, I guess, in his response, because he was trying to specifically debunk the idea of young earth creationism, but in doing so, he kind of was insinuating that all Christians and all creationists were kind of in the same boat a little bit. I think he was just kind of trying to make a point about the specifically young earth creationists, but was simultaneously, without realizing it, kind of letting some anti-religious beliefs of his own bleed through a little bit, because it seemed kind of overly aggressive towards organized religion more than towards a specific sect. But I think I just really get annoyed when there are conspiracy theorists, because like young earth creationists who are kind of in that group for religious reasons, I kind of get it, because I used to be like that, because it's just like you don't understand it and you're wanting to make it nice and easy, so you kind of say, oh, the earth's young and scientists just don't know what they're talking about. But the problem with that is that it limits the power of God in your. If you say that God only made things brand new, it limits his power more than you realize. So there's a theological issue with it. But also, the issue is that you are writing off all good science and any real hard looks at the world around us and the way it works. You're kind of just denying any actual evidence you see because of your faith. And God does not go against physical evidence. Like, I think that's something that a lot of Christians and a lot of people who debate Christians also don't really kind of go out of their way to do the opposite of. Is so many Christians try to prove God exists, but then in the search of evidence, or in the search of proving their own view of what the Bible says right, they run against actual physical, archaeological, and scientific evidence as to how the world and the universe works. And instead of saying, okay, maybe my view on God is wrong, maybe I'm not putting enough trust and faith in God that he can both do what he said, but also make the world work in this way. They just say, no, all the scientists are wrong. And that creates this really large gap where anyone who really wants to be anything even remotely related to scientific evidence or the science profession, they would just be unable to be a Christian at that point because they would have to deny basic scientific understanding and process. But you need to be able to reconcile your faith and the things you know to be true. And that's the way you do that isn't by making science suddenly wrong. It's not by making up some grand conspiracy against you. You just have to look at yourself and realize that you're putting God in a box. You're saying, oh, God couldn't possibly do this and still have done what he said he did. Instead of simply thinking about it in a different way, you get so set in your ways that you say, oh no, this evidence goes against my beliefs, therefore the evidence is wrong. Not, maybe I need to look at what I believe and see how God could have done this. Because I'm a firm Christian and a firm believer, but I also believe in science and the scientific process and evolution. There's no scientific evidence for God. That's where faith comes in. But there's also no scientific evidence against God. And when you start finding scientific evidence against your beliefs, you need to take another look, read through the Bible again, because I think you'll find that God knew what he was doing the whole time. And if you're a Christian and believe that especially, you'll be able to find that God doesn't go against science. He doesn't go against actual physical evidence, but you may have viewed it the wrong way, or you may have put him in too small a box, saying, oh, he just did this way or this easily, when really he put so much more work and effort into it than you could ever possibly imagine, and made something so beautiful that it should make you cry every time you look at it. Like when you look at the stars, you're seeing light that's billions of years old, that's traveled across galaxies. And so many people say, I'm not sure I believe that, because then the universe would be too old for how old the Bible is. And instead of appreciating the beauty God's put into the world, they try and put him in a tiny little box, saying, oh, he just did this long ago, and it can't get more complicated than that. But when you look at God, you got to realize we will never understand him. That's a physical fact of being a human, is we are not God. We can't understand something so much greater than us. Just like we can't understand the universe and the way it works. We need to just accept that some things we can't understand, but that's what gives life its beauty, is the mystery. But anyway, that's all the time I have for today, so I'll continue this episode tomorrow. Okay, welcome to part 2 of this week's podcast. Oh, still haven't gotten around to editing last week's or uploading the one before that, but I'll probably get on that either today or tomorrow and get that all going. But I'm trying to remember exactly where I left off yesterday. And I know before I was having trouble kind of remembering the spots I started and stopped between portions of the episode, and that was just like a couple hours. A whole day and sleeping between uh, segments has kind of got me not really tying them as closely together, I think. And so it's a little bit different for sure, but I think it's still pretty good, and I'm not too worried about it because it's not really about a comprehensive narrative all the time. A lot of times it's more of just daily updates and continuing recording of events in my daily life. But I do know that yesterday I was talking about, kind of going on and on about the my views on creation, evolution, and the relationship between uh, intellectual and educational thought versus faith and belief. But kind of where I ended was just reiterating that I don't think that they're any different, or that not that they're any different, but I don't think that they are diametrically opposed as a lot of people do. And I think that's kind of where I was going with the whole thing that I was talking about, because I was talking about the video I was watching was by Milo Rossi, Mini Minute Man on YouTube, which I really like his content, but he just was and he was kind of going on and on about this guy, and I think all of his points were spot on for the subject that he was talking about. But when going on a rant about uh, young Earth creationists, he kind of threw all creationists in there with it, and I don't think that my viewpoint is a very popular or particularly widespread one. I haven't heard it very much in the way that I've kind of said it, because I've heard a lot of Christians say that they believe in evolution and believe that the universe is the age that scientists say it is and all that. But a lot of them kind of write off the Bible as entirely symbolism, whereas I think it is a mix of symbolism and fact. And there is not necessarily always a difference between those two things. Things that are factual can also be symbolic. And I think that specifically in the case of creation, the 6 days and resting on the seventh that it took to create the world and the whole universe is definitely symbolism. But at the same time, I fully believe that that is the amount of time that it took and the order it was done in. And God just doesn't work through time in the same way that we do. And that's where the misunderstanding comes. Whether I'm right on that or not, I don't know. But I know that I trust God and believe in Him, and that's the important part. The exact details of how He created the earth are not as important as trusting that He did and making sure that you use the factual scientific data that's available to actually function in the world with that information, so that you're trusting God, but also using all the information you have to create correct science and useful tools. Anyway, that's kind of getting off. So the reason that I went off on that whole rant myself was because in the rant about young earth creationists denying science, the YouTuber I was watching kind of threw in everybody there and pretty much was saying, it felt like he's, at one point, it was just a single sentence, but I don't think he entirely meant it. I think it was just kind of getting caught up, but he was essentially, I don't remember what the exact sentence was. I need to look it up before I just go spouting off, but I felt like he was saying that faith and scientific thought are diametrically opposed, and if you're a person of faith, you cannot be a person of science. It kind of felt like that's what he was insinuating. I don't think he meant that, but he was being very frustrated with the person that was kind of bringing those together and trying to say that because of his faith, scientists were wrong, which is just all of the thoughts he had that the guy he was talking about were completely ridiculous and were just conspiracy theorists and borderline racist at some points. And so it's just one of those things. I don't hear many people encouraging faith in science in the same context. Like, so many people these days really, if they push science, they seem to disregard faith as old-fashioned and useless in modern times. And if they're a person of great faith, they don't really want to focus on science and think that science is going to inevitably lead you to doubting your faith. And I don't think it has to be that way. And I think people who are not faithful people, regardless of what religion they are in, faithful people in science are kind of discredited somewhat in both their worlds, because they're thought of as somebody who isn't rational because they have faith, and they're also thought of as somebody who isn't fully faithful because they try and find the rational means of the world. It's really frustrating as somebody who wants to be both, because I like thinking logically. I like thinking through problems and finding rational scientific answers to things. But at the same time, I believe in God, and I don't want to feel like my faith is invalid because I like knowing how the world works. But I also know that I can't know everything about the world, because I can't know everything about God and His creation, and there's more to it than I could possibly imagine. And I think that what I kind of felt from the guy whose video I was watching is he was a very staunch atheist. Like, you can just kind of tell from a lot of his videos, he is very much a staunch atheist and has never openly been anti-faith and anti-Christian, but tends to lump a lot of people of faith together when trying to debunk conspiracy theorists who are using their faith, whether they believe it or not, using the guise of faith to trick other people into believing things or giving them their attention or their money. And I just kind of rubbed me the wrong way, because just as much as he's kind of using his platform to harm people through fake science and uh, pseudo archaeology. The guy he was doing the video on, who's peddling these conspiracy theories, is just as much harming people's faith and using people's beliefs to steal their money and their time. And I think that that is being kind of overlooked by a lot of people who do debunking conspiracy theorists, because they don't tend to be religious people. And so they act as if religion is some sort of face that these people put on, and kind of blame people's religion for causing the conspiracy theories, when I really think most of the time the conspiracy theorists are not religious. They are using religion and people's misunderstandings in their religion to sell products and grab attention. That's all they're about. They're taking advantage of people's religion, just as like they're taking advantage of fake archaeology and fake science. And it needs to be included when you're talking about conspiracy theories, that not only should you focus on debunking the scientific aspects, but you need to show people that they're not really about the religious part either. Because if you can show that they're being disingenuous in their religion, then you'll help a lot more people not fall for their scams. But that's all the time we have for today. So see y'all tomorrow. Hello and welcome to part 3 of the Phlightless Podcast. I finally got around to uploading the podcasts that are already done, and so that's all up to date. Took a while, but we got there. So now that we're all up to date, oh, I don't have to constantly try and remind myself about that when I'm driving. Oh, but it is definitely one of those things that I, even though it's a lot easier, uh, kind of time wise, doing it once a week, I keep forgetting because I'm not as used to doing it. Like the first month that I did this podcast, every day after work, I would just get home and kind of do a little routine of get it processing, and then before bed upload it to YouTube. But having it less often and just being more stressed and more busy kind of interrupted all of that and made it not so simple. I do think that stress has a wider effect on your life than a lot of people realize, especially in America. I know so many people that kind of use being stressed by work as a sort of badge of honor, where they kind of act like they're doing so much at work that they're stressed, but they're doing good, so it's a good thing. When really, I do not, like, I take pride in doing my work well, but I do not take pride in doing so much that I get stressed. And I find it strange that that has become such a common thing, to take pride in your work being detrimental to your the rest of your life. Like, I think it's good to take pride in your work, but so many people let their work take over other aspects of their life and interrupt things that are so much more meaningful and important, like family time or vacations or hobbies. Like, I think that, my hobbies are just building a few things here and there, playing video games, and painting, assembling, and playing miniature games. Like, that isn't much, but I think that that is so much more valuable to my life than my work is. My work, I want to do it good when I'm there, but that is just something that I do to get paid. I am not looking to go above and beyond during outside hours so that I can impress people who do not want to be around necessary. And I like my culture, but I do not want to be around them because I want to be home doing what I enjoy and not at work having a rough time just trying to do stuff I'm not really that interested in just so that I can get paid to, live. But if the cost of living what it is, hard enough without spending extra time. I just, no, I'm starting to get a little frustrated with the cost of living issues and the fact that the government cares more about shoving homeless people into the rain in Washington, D.C. than they do about making sure that, people can afford to live on a single income. And I make a pretty decent income too. Like, we're not even a low income family. We don't qualify for any kind of government assistance. Still, we don't have enough to get around. The government assistance thresholds are also ridiculously low and haven't been updated in years. But I think it's just because people don't want to spend money helping out others when they'd rather have that money spent on things a little closer to them that matter a little more to them. And that's kind of the problem with a representative democracy. Is you end up having a group of people in control who, if you're not careful, can get very out of touch very quickly to the point where they do not understand how hard it is to get by for the average person. Yeah, most people do not enjoy and do not want to be spending 40 hours a week just working so that they can live. If I could make my current salary and work half as many hours, I would do that, even though I could work more hours to get more money. I'd rather spend time with my family, spend time doing my hobbies. Like, we could probably use, if I got paid hourly and they got paid twice as much, I would probably only work about 60 to 70% as much because I think that would be enough where we wouldn't have any budget issues with our current lifestyle. And then we could spend a lot more time with my family, get to help my wife around the house, get to play with my daughter more than an hour a day. and I would still make enough to live on. But even though that's a completely reasonable amount of work, and I still get enough done to justify my salary, nobody would ever offer me that deal. People are just so used to 40-hour work weeks that nobody can imagine paying somebody for less work, even if it makes them happier and healthier. They don't really care about the employee, they care about the hours worked. And that's really what it comes down to. People in the US are focused on output numbers. They do not care about the employees or the input. They don't care who did twice as much work as everybody else, which I'm not saying I do twice as much work as everyone else. I think everyone in my company works just as hard as I do. But yeah, you could, if there was somebody who did work twice as hard and got 3 times as much done, they would still not get paid if they skipped an hour of work. They still get that deducted from their time. Like you can, if I showed up and did an entire day's work in 2 hours, but then went home, they would immediately call and say I have to come back to work, or I wasn't getting paid, or I was getting fired. And somebody else could be doing half that much work in 8 hours, but because they're there, taking up a seat the whole time, seems to be all that people care about. Really, like I've had times right now is probably the most stressed my work has been, and just the most kind of overall work I've been packing into a day. And probably since I started working there, like in my first month, I didn't do much of anything. Like I have specifically created formulas and macros in Excel so that the entire amount of work I did in my first month at my job, I can now do in about 3 to 5 hours. And it's the same amount of data. I just have gotten better at doing it and created tools to make it go faster. But the funny thing is, if I had never created those tools to make that work go faster, and if I had just kind of sat back and said, okay, I'm fine with this being my job, I could be doing nothing all day except for selecting files, opening them, formatting them, and then combining them. Like that is all I did for the first month, and that was working 8 hours a day with only so working 4 hours, lunch break 4 hours, and not being late, not taking breaks between like full work day, just formatting Excel files is an entire month of work. And I was just doing like I think the 3 months before that, and then I got tired of that, and so I started messing around and got a macro going so that I could do it. I cut that work down from an entire month to just one day, which was crazy good, but instead of any kind of real difference, I just got more work at it. And I didn't mind because I don't want to just be sitting there doing nothing, but I really, like, I could have just never done that. I could have just let my job be filling out forms and I would be almost no stress at my job. It would just be easy day to day. I'd probably get a little bored, but I could handle that and just put in my 8 hours and come home. But instead, I went above and beyond, cut down all that, and it just got me more work. I don't regret it because I like doing good at my job and I like getting good at it. And I definitely don't want to just do data entry. Sometimes I do think it's kind of ridiculous that there's not even an option to try and adjust my schedule. But that's all the time I have for today. So I'll continue this tomorrow. Well, hello and welcome to, I guess this is part 4 of today's, well, this week's podcast. Oh, just got a haircut, and man, I did not realize how long my hair had gotten until she started cutting, and it was just like, wow. Oh, cut a few inches off, I feel like, but my hair grows kind of fast, and it's been a few months, probably like 3 months, but oh, yeah, I usually stop to get my hair cut just on my way home from work because I work real close by to a one of the places I go to get it cut, so it's pretty easy to just stop on by. Doesn't really take too much time. Oh, I'm a little tired today. Had a bit. It was a pretty normal day at work. I got a lot done, but nothing too special or exciting happened in any particular direction. Oh, didn't really have anything exciting. So, oh, but oh, I started working on my painting of the LAATLE, so the Star Wars miniature that I've been working on, and it's coming along. I got most of it painted. I just need to touch up I just need to do the paint the outside of 2 pieces and touch up a couple others, and then I'll be done with like the base coat on uh, all of the ship parts, and then I need to do so then the next steps from there is that I need to I need to finish the 2 miniature, like 2 pilots that go inside the miniature. And those are going to be pretty easy to do. They're just black with a couple metal highlights, and then I'll do a little tone on them. But then I need to also completely finish the interior before I move on to the next part, because I'll need to do the interior, and after that, uh, so there's 2 interior spaces. There's the back hold, and then there's the front cockpit. And the cockpit, I have the base layer done, so I need to do any detailing and highlights I want on there, and then I need to wash the whole thing. And then if I am going to do a dry brush, I need to do that on top of all of that. So it's in-depth process for the rest of that. But then on top of that, I also need to do the cargo, not cargo because it's a troop carrier, but pretty much cargo hold in the back. And on that, I'll need to do the same thing. It's a lot less detailed, so I'm not as worried about that one. It's not going to take too long. It's already mostly done. I just need to paint all the panels in a metallic kind of color. And then probably from there, do a little bit of lighting effects from the right areas on that. And then from there, I need to, after the interiors are all done, I need to glue everything together. Because that'll be, like, that's why I have to get the interiors done, because I can't paint those after I start gluing. And I want to glue everything together before I start on the rest of the exterior, because the weathering I want to kind of match between all the layers. And so I want to get that more or less all done at once. But that should be pretty easy, because it'll just be a couple of layers. But the main thing is on that it needs to the main thing was that I wanted to get the spray and then the base coat on with it all taken apart, so every part is fully painted, because I didn't want to miss a part that I couldn't really get back to with the paint, or have any of those parts where it's just kind of hidden underneath the edge of it there. And that was some idiot in a sports car just passed me going like 90 miles an hour. I don't get why people feel that is necessary. I know it's probably just a teenage guy thinking it's just fun, but people who speed, like, it can really hurt somebody if you crash. And that person's probably going to be you, but even worse if it's someone else. Like, if you hurt yourself, I mean, you did it to yourself, but why do something that could hurt somebody else who's not even involved? Oh, I just get really annoyed at reckless drivers, because I feel like they're really endangering themselves and everyone around them just because they think it's cool. And that's the worst excuse ever to do something dangerous. Like, if you're in a hurry, if there's an emergency, then maybe you could speed. But if there's no emergency, then it's just ridiculous. Oh, and that made me lose my train of thought. Oh, yeah. But yeah, I was wanting to get the base layers down, and so then I want to do the wash all together so I can really get it looking uniform. And I'll probably do a little bit of touch-ups here and there, especially at the creases, so that it looks like one solid model that's not got any kind of creases or differences there. So it'll be just in one piece, and then I can kind of make sure that it looks like it was always in one piece, or at least that the pieces are where they should be. But yeah, I'll do some touch-ups to the layering, kind of make sure that all of those are in the main area there. On color, make sure all the pieces match on color to the main area, and then from there do the washes, dry brushes, and all that. The bigger parts of the model aren't really what I'm worried about as much, because they're pretty easy to do. What the more pressing part is the interiors, because those are actually very difficult because they have all the detail. But that's all the time we got for now, so I'll continue with the last part of this episode tomorrow. Maybe I'll get this one uploaded on time. Who knows? Hello and welcome to part 5, last part of this week's episode. Oh, it's hard to believe it has already been a full week, because I feel like I just woke up on Monday morning yesterday, which sounds good, but it's just been super busy and stressful, so I feel like I hadn't remembered much of it. Hopefully it's a little calmer going forward. I mean, it was a lot better than last week or the week before that, but it's still been rough. Oh, and I'm early this morning, and there was just a lot going on. Made me think again, maybe I should just get a different job, because I don't want to be this stressed all the time. Seemed like it was temporary, but I don't know. Things have started coming up, and as we started finishing some stuff up, other stuff started getting added on, and now I feel like the workload is, even when it should be lightening, it's increasing. And so I really don't know. I feel like I maybe should start looking, just because it's getting a little tiring, and I don't like just feeling stressed all the time and tired constantly. Like, I really haven't been doing that much, so I shouldn't be as tired as I am every day, but I think it's the stress adding on top of it, which is not really, a lot of it's not necessary stress is the thing. It's because there is some stress just from the workload normally, but that I can handle. It's the fact that it is just kind of kept increasing and increasing, and things are being expected more often and more quickly. And I really think that the people running the business are a little bit out of touch with what's actually going on in the office, because I don't think they realize how hard we're working. They always kind of call and expect us to drop whatever we're doing and do whatever they're needing right that minute. But even though they know we're doing a lot, they just kind of ignore the fact that we're always in the middle of something when they call and expect us to drop it and do what they say, and then as soon as they're done with that, expect us to have already done the other thing. But they tend to work like 10-hour days, or they're that weird kind of where they work all day long, but they also take breaks all day long, and they'll be doing a bunch of other stuff that's not related directly to the business, and then also do the business. And so they'll be doing things at like 6 or 8 o'clock at night or 7 in the morning, but then in the middle of the day they'll be completely unreachable. Oh, and it just creates this whole mess of everyone who needs them for something, because they've made a lot of the necessary functions of the business rely entirely on them to be completed. So we can do all the rest of it, but if we don't get this one email from them approving it, it's just all a waste of time. Or, on the other hand, they're up in everybody's business being extremely micromanaging and just keeping everybody stressed out because they're trying to change all the different processes that we've had for years now, just because one time it got messed up. Like this morning, we were supposed to run something for our customers that use a certain portion of our software that I'm in charge of. And I have been so busy, I didn't get a chance to get it all together until pretty much the last minute yesterday. And then with only 2 hours left in the day, it was ready to go. And so I called them, no answer, called them, no answer, called them. Oh, we'll get to that here in a minute. Let me do this first. And then just waited, called them 2 more times, no answer. And just end of the day, had to just go home without it being done, because I'm not going to stay late because they can't manage a schedule. And then got griped at this morning for it not being done yesterday, and was just trying to go through the whole process just because we have had an incredibly busy week. And the process wasn't the issue. The issue was that they've had me doing 5 million other things all week, last week and the week before. So I had absolutely no time to prepare. And then when I actually was done, and then we got to something that I should have been able to do myself, but instead I have to call and go through it with them so they can do it, because we are not trusted with that level of clearance. And then it just turns into this whole mess. And that just made me super stressed out earlier. But then I got in the car and just put on some music and sang a little bit, and that helped. Because it's something that I think I have not done enough of, is singing for stress relief. Because I like singing in the car, and I usually just put on some good music to help me relax when I get stressed. But today it was more than that. I just put on some songs that help me when I'm stressed, and then sang them pretty much at the top of my lungs in the car. And I think it helped a lot. And there are some good Christian songs that are about, even in the tough times, it'll be okay. And I know it's very kind of generic platitudes, all of that stuff, but it really does help when you're stressed and worried and worked up. It really does help to have that kind of reassurance and be able to give it to yourself again. And then there's a few country songs on that playlist that I like as well that are good. This guy is parked right in the middle of the road trying to merge into a left turn lane that is not open. And there's a line going back like a quarter of a mile, and he's just trying to merge right up here because he couldn't be bothered to wait in line. And that was a school bus that he just cut off. I really, really do not get people who are so impatient that they endanger others on the road. It's just so dangerous. But yeah, I'm sorry for it being a bit of a complainy segment. I just had a real rough day and a bit tired at the end of the week. Well, I guess it wasn't too rough. It was pretty fine in the afternoon. Just this morning was quite the headache. And at the end of a long week, I think I just need to have a little bit of time to sit back and relax. Oh, but that's about all the time we have for this week's episode. So thank you for listening, and I'll see y'all next time. Oh.